Mike, turn your games down.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 155 of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, and who's building bases with me tonight?
We got Vincent Goodwin from the Some of My Friends Read Comics podcast.
And my name is Kody, and I have a 20% increase in direct podcasting damage.
And welcome. This is your first time on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's great. It's great to be podcasting with you again, Michael. And this is the topic of this podcast really intrigued me. And so I was very excited to replay this game and actually get to talk about it.
So we're going to be talking about Advance Wars, the first one, which came out back in 2001. Damn, North America. For Game Boy Advance, made by Intelligent Systems. Yeah, which has not been re-released, actually, to this day.
Did it come out on Wii U? I feel like I bought it out on the Wii U.
Was it on Wii U as a download? It doesn't show on my
on their virtual console, they had it as one of the games you could play.
I get upset when Nintendo, which is notorious for, doesn't re-release anything.
Yeah. This one is got a weird storied history because they did release it on the Wii U. The Wii U actually surprisingly had a pretty good GBA robust library. It had like Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero Mission, the Mario and Luigi games. It was pretty good for GBA.
That is cool.
Yeah, you could definitely play a lot of games on their virtual console, which is, I mean, shocking considering how badly the Wii U did. But like it was really cool that you could play Advanced as well as some DS games. I don't remember how many of them actually ended up on the store there from the Advance Wars series, at least. I know at least the first one, but they definitely had a good mix of DS and Game Boy Advance games.
That makes me happy when games end up getting re-released, and even if it's just a port of the same thing, I don't care. I'm just happy to see it again.
Mm-hmm.
Like Advance
I kind of like that though. I'd rather just have like the ROMs. Just put the ROMs and make them easy to purchase, and like with some save states, and then call it a day. Like I'll buy it. I have every ROM of every video game known to man, but it's nice to like at least you gave me an official way to do it. You didn't futz with the game. You didn't do anything. You just gave it to me, and I'm happy.
Yeah, no, I'm very big about if I can buy the game in some way digital for cheap, I will go and buy the game. I may still play the ROM just because, but I will at least buy the game so I did it the right way.
Yeah, I agree. I have it on my modded 2DS, a homebrewed 2DS, but actually I wanted to ask you guys about this because the art style in the new Advance Wars 1 and 2 reboot camp that's now pushed, I guess, to April. What do you guys think about that? Because one of the, I think, most striking things about this series is the art style. Mm-hmm. And the animations, like the hand-drawn stuff, I feel like looks beautiful and it's amazing. Mm-hmm. But the in-game stuff just looks like very like those ads you get for iPhone games.
It looks very utilitarian. I think
it's just very bland. It's like, oh, this is an airplane. This is an infantryman guy. And I don't know, I'm very disappointed with it, unfortunately.
I think Advance Wars threads the needle of its art style so well that everything is like visually distinct despite being like 8 or 16 pixels tall. But and Way Forward, who's developing the remake, and their 3D has always been kind of scattershot for me. Like DuckTales Remastered looked kind of gross. And even like Double Dragon Neon, like the colors are nice, but the models are gross. It kind of loses its charm. And I've been looking back at like the rest of the Wars series, and you can kind of see like it's very utilitarian. Looks a lot like old Fire Emblem for like on the Famicom, the original Nintendo. And then when the Super Nintendo comes around, you get this beautiful pixel art. And I really like it. And they're really easily distinct. Like, okay, that's the dude with the bazooka. That's the thing that takes down planes. And then the art style, I felt like by the time they got to the final DS game where they did the like Mad Max post-apocalyptic view, like I didn't know what the hell the characters were. I couldn't easily recognize them or distinguish like that's that type of helicopter versus this type of helicopter. The way that like Advance Wars and I guess 2 and then the DS one, the first DS one, like they just thread the needle perfectly. Like I can easily recognize that art style, and it's pretty and cute and not like grimy or gritty. It's a weird line that they thread, and I really like that art style. And the new one's kind of like, here's some 3D models.
I agree with you. I didn't see it until today when I was looking up the videos for Reboot Camp. I didn't like the style of it. I really like the original style of GBA games. It's something about the pixel. It just is cute, but it just fits right. I don't know what it is exactly.
And that's the weird thing. Going back to things like, why are we remaking this? Just throw the ROMs on. They're perfectly good. Like this is the first time I'm like, this doesn't need a coat of paint. Like this is fine.
There's nothing wrong with these original games. I think they look perfect for what they are. There was nothing you need to do with them other than just re-release them. But people like 3D models. I mean, again, it's a turn-based strategy game where you use units. Like, you didn't need 3D models to show them shooting each other and stuff like that, because you can turn that off somehow too, I think. I didn't, but I think you can.
Yes, you can. But I do think that the art is, like you said, having those animations of the tanks rolling up and then kind of like how they shake when they stop, like there's such great detail in these. And even though it is, I don't know, just over 20-year-old game now, 30 years. No, it's 20 years. But like it's such a beautiful game, and like you want to watch those animations even though it's the same thing every time. I don't know if I'm going to do that on the Switch version. I'm still going to buy it. I just won't like it.
I would watch the animations most of the time, except for some of the final missions. When I was getting butchered, I couldn't watch them. I had to just put it on fast forward, put my phone down, and not look at it because it would upset me for some stupid reason. But that was just mainly the last mission.
Yeah, the last mission. But we're jumping to the end.
No, just give you an example. I also played this on my phone because it's nice and simple that way, and it's a perfect game to play on your phone.
Right. I think we were talking before we were recording, like, because this franchise has been dead since pretty much 2008. And I feel like, Kody, you were saying like this could have fit really well on the Wii U with the touch screen and like the dual screen to like watch things. I also think it would have been a really easy move to mobile, like as part of Nintendo's mobile strategy, like to compete with like Clash of Clans, or not compete with, but find a similar audience to like all the war games that are on phones. Because it's like it could be asymmetrical chess that you just send to your friends, like a Words with Friends game. It'd work really easily.
You're not wrong.
I agree.
I mean, they put Fire Emblem. They did that little mobile game of Fire Emblem. Why not do this?
Well, because you can't get sexy ladies to hang out with you.
But there's no sexy ladies in the Pikmin game.
That's true.
They'll put.
I don't think that Pikmin game is doing very well.
For me, at least, no kink shaming. If you find your Pikmin attractive,
That probably okay. That probably. Well, also, Advance Wars was made by the same company that made Fire Emblem. Is the only reason we even got Fire Emblem, because of the Advance Wars 1 and 2 did so good here.
I think that mixed with Smash Bros. Having Roy and Marth, and then I think Advance Wars is a little more of a palatable Fire Emblem. Because I was interested in Fire Emblem because of Advance Wars. I'm like, oh, it's another war game that's mixed in with like Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy Tactics, with having like permanent content. But and like characters that like carry through. Which this game is more in like the StarCraft or Warcraft 1 and 2 mold, where you basically base build and you have your military from the beginning, and you don't have like hero characters necessarily.
Because you just have units. Like, that's the thing with this game, is you build units. There is no leveling up. There is no. I mean, you do have COs, commanding officers, that you play as that are characters that have different abilities, sort of, but that's the only real difference. You don't have, like, when it comes to, if you think of like with Fire Emblem, you have your characters that level up themselves as they fight. Where in this game, you don't have that at all, which I'm fine with, actually. Like, I like the style of the game, that this is just fine.
It actually, like, from a design perspective, it's a lot easier to do. Also, I remember listening to some guy who was trying to make like I think it was the guy who made Skulls of the Shogun, which he was going to make it like Fire Emblem, that had like characters that you leveled up that you carried over into missions. And it just ended up being easier, like doing the Advanced War style. Was like, I know what my player has going into every mission, because I would get fucked in Fire Emblem if I just like did not have an answer for like an archer, because my whatever thing on that triangle died 2 missions ago. I would just be fucked in Fire Emblem. Like, there was no coming back from it. And at least in like Advanced Wars, it's like, here are your 8 characters. You're not going to be able to build anything else in this mission. Fucking figure it out. And I really like that kind of like chess puzzle model of the Advanced Wars pieces. I like that campaign strategy.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask you guys about what your opinions on that were, because number one, I'm not very much into RTSs. Advance Wars has a special place in my heart, not only because the Game Boy Advance was kind of one of the first consoles that I had, and had a game that I could play like with my brothers and friends, because you could play a game and just pass the console. Mm-hmm. But this actually kind of reminded me of it was like, well, what about this like caught it for me, because like number one, like Vincent was just saying, you have to like plan like what types of units you bring in, and those types of units level up. In this one, it's kind of more like StarCraft, you just make your tanks and then send them out. But at this time, I was actually kind of into RTSs, because there was another series on the Game Boy Advance the Tactics Advance series that I played a lot of, and they're not highly regarded in the Final Fantasy hierarchy of games. But it's weird that RTSs were just kind of like a really good fit on the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's the thing is I was absolutely like, I'm not so much anymore, but I was absolutely like all in on Warcraft 2 and StarCraft in 98 to 02 time period. It was like, and the dream was to get something like that on my Game Boy Advance. And there was a game that never came out in America called Napoleon that was teased at Game Boy Advance launch. I think it came out in Japan and maybe Europe. That was actually straight up an RTS. Like you moved things in real time, you built armies. But and the thing is, the GBA's cool thing about it is it could pump out a ton of sprites. At the time, Choo Choo Rocket was a good like demo of like we can play like hundreds of independent sprites all with independent AI working at the same time. So I was like, the GBA can do this. We can get like StarCraft 64 like right. And they didn't. And there are RTSs like on the DS and they're all right, like Final Fantasy 12 Revenant Wings. And so I was just like any type of war game, RTS game, even if it was turn-based like Advance Wars, like I was like all in, like this is what I wanted 20 years ago.
I've never heard of this Napoleon thing until just now. I'm looked it up. It looked kind of cool, by the way. And
yeah,
right,
apparently it sucks, but in screenshots it looked like screenshots in 2000 when I'm like looking on like Planet GameCube and like IGN. I'm like, oh my god, this game's gonna be amazing. It and Golden Sun and Advance Wars are gonna be my games. And so this is actually I got this game for it actually came out on 9/11. This game, and so. I remember that Christmas, my mom didn't want to fly to my grandparents' house in Indiana. So we ended up driving from Texas to Indiana over Christmas. And I got this game for the drive. And so this was just like a long, long drive in the back of my mom's van all the way up to Indiana. And that was my game. And I got it until I got Advance Wars. I beat Advance Wars. I got Golden Sun for Christmas. But it was Advance Wars and Golden Sun in my parents' assisted living home. Just hanging out with old people and showing them my video games and watching Christmas Story and taking breaks to go see Fellowship of the Ring twice. That was my Christmas. It was a great Christmas.
That's an excellent Christmas.
Mike, did you play it, or is this the first time you played this game?
I have actually played this game 3 times.
Wow.
Or 3 times in more recent memory. I played this. I never had a Game Boy Advance for some reason. I completely skipped that generation. I had actually got this game the first time in emulation. This is one of my early emulation games when I first got a brand new computer that could run Game Boy Advance at the time.
Ooh.
It wasn't I had a really I had an older computer that worked really well, but when I started, it couldn't run stuff like this.
This would be great for emulation though, too, because like I didn't have like controllers. We were trying to play NES games with like a keyboard.
Yep.
And like frame skippings and weird latency issues on like Super Nintendo ROMs. This would be perfect for emulating on a PC.
It was. I mean, I had a blast playing this. I remember when we found it, both me and my friend would take turns playing it. And we both played in our respective computers, but we also then what we would do, we would get together and we would play together. Like we both beat the game, unlocked all the extra missions because you can earn coins as you beat missions to then unlock different maps. And we would just sit there and play co-op together. Where we'd like do a team fight against 2 other people and then switch control and then pass the computer. We just play by keyboard, so we just move out of the way. Another person plays.
Awesome.
It was great. Then I played it again. About a couple years before this podcast started, about a year before the podcast started, I beat it in like 2 days, and then I played it again for the show. And I always liked this game. It's such a good game.
Yeah, it's definitely like all of these games look great. I stuck with the series. I definitely played Advance Wars 2 and Advance Wars Dual Strike for the DS. When they went to the weird kind of hyper realistic style in Days of Ruin, I wasn't as interested in it. And also by that time I had kind of I was graduating high school, and so I had less time to devote to my beloved Game Boy Advance. And I kind of had other pursuits like my Wii, and I had to play Metroid Prime 3, and so there, I had different gaming priorities. But these are all great. They were a lot of fun in a pre-internet to have system passing multiplayer. And just being able to continue to unlock just different color uniforms was super cool.
Well, one thing that also was like the fact that this game isn't hyper realistic, like the graphics are not like that. The game itself, even though you're a war game, they make it seem friendly enough in a way. Like one thing that I always got to kick out because I'm a history buff is that you have 4 different nations mainly. You have Orange Star, Blue Moon, Yellow Comet and Green Earth. And I like how some of them, like Green Earth, for example, those are frickin' German helmets from World War II.
Mm-hmm.
No question. Those are German outfits. I'm like, I know what you're trying to pull here. And then when you look at Kanbei, which was the first one, the Yellow Comet, those are 100% Japanese from World War II.
And I know that apparently the Super Famicom Wars, they actually, one of the COs was Hitler.
Okay, that's cool.
They smartly cut him. But the COs have like this weird like bit of charm to them because like everybody you're fighting, they'll be like, I am Kanbei, I'm the bad guy, and I'm gonna fight everything like that. And then he'll be talking to his daughter, and his daughter will be like, Dad, you got to remember to do this. Like, I'm in. And then he like Leroy Jenkins into the battle. And you're like, Kanbei, even though I'm beating him, he's, and he's strong. He's still kind of dumb. And so it really works like at the end of the game, spoiler alert, you team up with everybody and you get to control them. And it's really cool. And then the sequel, you get to really jump around and be with the other CEOs. They're like not like huge dicks. They're like fun, lovable assholes that you get to team up with. It's a weird, again, a line that they just thread so perfectly, I think, in this game and the second one.
No, I mean, you're 100% right. Like, that's one thing that's so interesting about this game is that it's not as violent as a war game would be normally you would feel, or as dark. Like, even, I mean, like all the COs are very friendly in different ways, and it's cartoonish, which works with what you're doing somehow. Like, it should be a lot more horrible what you're doing. There's
a few dark things like Sonya will be like, I was testing out a theory and that's why we had to fight all these missions. I'm like, dozens of people died for you to test out this theory, Sonya. But the game doesn't dwell on that. But I dwelled on that.
That's funny. But no, that's just how the game is. And it's very interesting like that. Like I love just the way that the different COs are, that they have these personalities, and how like the story starts off with you, like you have a whole set of training missions with you, which you can skip, which is you trying to take back.
Wait, you can skip that?
You can skip those by going to the last one, doing the last one.
Yeah.
No, don't tell me that. I had to play through all those damn missions.
And I read online, you don't have to.
No.
I did it I played like 4 or 5 years ago, and I went through all the training missions because I hadn't remembered how to do it. And then this time I started, and Nell's like, do you know how to play Advanced Wars? And I'm like, yes, I do, Nell. And she's like, she gave me all the training missions. I'm like, oh, shit. I guess it was one of those answers where either way you're still fucked. And I played the last one, and I never had to play another one. So
gosh, I feel so stupid
like 13
now.
missions. It's like 13 missions.
Well, I think they add good story and they add good gameplay, because even the tutorial mission, they'll tell you, okay, you need to do this, but she won't. After a little bit, she'll be like, you're on your own now, and she'll leave you, and you have to kind of figure it out. I mean, yes, that it's in your favor, but still, I think it's cool, and it adds story of you fighting Olaf. I think it's mainly just Olaf you fight as you're trying to push him back out of your country.
I'm hoping that the remake at least lets me skip the tutorial again.
I'm sure they will. That remake looks like almost one for
one. We will see. I hope they don't railroad me into that.
I feel like it's going to be
Nintendo's already on thin ice with me for not having Xbox Live achievements as part of it. So if I'm not going to get an achievement points, international space bucks that don't matter, I better like at least get some enjoyment out of it. So if they force me through it again, I don't know what I'll do. I'll play it while watching something in the background, I guess.
I get it.
And again, this is very similar to the first Fire Emblem that was on the Game Boy, where you also had like a protracted tutorial that then wasn't part of the main game. Because I don't even think you get the COs in the tutorial, right? You don't get those till the first.
No, you don't get Andy. You're just you. But no, you get no specialties, no powers yet, none of that.
I stuck with Andy the whole game. I don't know why. It's exactly how I play an RPG. You give me the first people to fill out my party are the people I stick with. I never switch people out. So I didn't play as Max or Sammy unless I absolutely had to.
I'm kind of the same. Like the three that you get that you start with that you have throughout the whole game. When I beat the game the first time, I stuck with Andy. Well, I mean, for this playthrough, and then when I started replaying the game a second time, because I was going through it a second time for this episode, just because I couldn't stop playing, I was going through as Max because I found out I really like Max's style. Because one thing about him is his long range units, which are rockets and artillery, are useless because he has lower range. His tanks take out people much faster than Andy or Sammy. So I would use him all the time, because then I could just put my tank next to yours and blow you up in one turn.
Yeah, I was the opposite because I love long range. That's how I like to play it. It's not putting anybody. Yeah.
I only use them when the game makes me. If I have a base, which not every level gives you a base, only some do. They're actually, most of this game is puzzle heavy, I feel, where you get X amount of units. This is your map. figure it out. Like you were saying earlier,
Right.
that's mostly how this game is.
Yeah. I did notice though, because a lot of missions, especially later, you get to choose between the 3 COs, and some of the levels are straight up different, and some of them are like a hard mode version. Like there's one where if you pick Andy, it's this way, and if you pick Sammy, it's got Fog of War on that same level against Eagle, which makes it way harder because he's got a lot of planes. So those are the kind of things that I'm like, oh well, that's interesting. You can do like kind of like a Star Fox style like hard path.
Yes. Also, depending that does affect when they have the missions where you get to choose. Like you have different levels in this game where you end up fighting Green Earth for like 3 missions in a row, and it actually depends on who you use. If you use Andy for all 3, you'll unlock Drake as a character you can buy once you beat the campaign. Or if you do it where you play as Max or Sammy, I don't remember which one. One of them will unlock Eagle then for you to be as a playable character when you beat the campaign. You can buy for the extra missions.
And I never played those extra missions. Y'all were talking about multiplayer too. I've never played anything other than the campaign in any of these games. I didn't even realize these things existed.
For some reason, after I beat this game, I started doing all the extra missions. I just went one by one to start knocking them out. Some of them are really simple, but you get to choose what CO you use, and you fight whoever they choose for you already predestined. Like there's one level and they're very different style levels. Like one was very ocean based, so I had to fight Drake with the game. And they're very different. Like they'll have more bases than you have to start with. Like it's just how they make it different difficulties, and they were cool. But then I need to stop playing this game. I had to move on. But I liked that about this game. I liked how this, like you said, the COs are cartoony enough where it takes away the feel of war. You don't feel like you're just murdering
committing
people.
War crimes.
Yeah, it doesn't feel as bad.
I think
No, it feels like chess.
Yeah,
I think that because it's just a unit, right? Like, oh, it's just a tank. Like you know, in Fire Emblem, when one of your characters perma-dies, that's forever, and that hurts. But like with Advance Wars, it's like, oh, I sent in an AA gun and it got blown up. Oh no, and I guess it kind of helps remove like a level of attachment, so it doesn't feel as serious when you lose an APC or something like that,
or anxiety on top of that, because like I'm gonna if I fuck up this person, I run into Fog of War and I land in a trap in Fire Emblem, because ostensibly, and I don't think I've said this enough, these games, Fire Emblem and Advance Wars, look the same, they control the same, they cut to the same battle screen. But with Fire Emblem, there's so much anxiety for me that like I'm gonna fuck up and either I'm gonna lose this person forever or I'm gonna have to lose 45 minutes of progress. Every single turn is that way, and that's too much for me. As opposed to like, let's go find out what's going on. Oh, we lost an APC. That's okay. And it's really funny because the game, I started figuring out, I think on this time, like what the game tries to target. They love going after APCs. I do not give a shit about them.
Nope.
At all. They're cheap and I don't care about them. So I make a fair amount of APCs just on exploratory missions to bait somebody into falling into my like long range or medium tank range or something.
Yeah, they're a wonder. Like you learn how the AI thinks in this game. I did the same thing. I would make an APC as bait and just throw him somewhere to bring people closer so I can murder him with my medium tanks. I'm like, he's only 5,000. He's worth nothing. I don't care. Yeah. Murder him. But it's just how the game works. There's certain enemies that they go after, more certain units that they'll go after first. That they just, and that's the other thing. I think the unit variety in this game is perfect. Where in 2 they add Neo tanks and something else, I think. And I have never been able to play 2 very far. Much as I love this game, I can't play 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a mega tank that has 3 cannons on the front. It's pretty ridiculous, and it kind of adds to that you could see that in the future, like possibly as, if you were to like think of like a fantastical, well, what's the next step in a tank? Well, most tanks only have 1 gun. And then you're right, like the Neo tanks that they added in the second one were fun as well. I think for the most part, I played as Max because I just like, I could just slam down a bunch of tanks, and it's like, okay, you guys have missiles and stuff. That's neat. I'm just going to swarm you with tanks.
Yeah, because that's how I mostly played. I would just make medium tanks.
Yep.
And I would just send 5-6 of them at you, and then problem solved.
Exactly. I just make a bunch of infantry, capture a bunch of buildings, and then just start pumping out medium tanks. That was my strategy for the most part.
But that's another thing that's so good, is that the way that you make money in this game is that you capture bases that are set up throughout the maps that you're in, and then by capturing those bases, you get I think 100 per base every turn. Which, I mean, it's how you get your money. Or no, 1,000 every turn. Sorry, 1,000.
Yeah, it's still pretty slow, though, sometimes, like, gaining resources, depending on how it works. Yeah, see, y'all do that. I did the opposite of like baiting into choke points where I'd put a medium tank and then like I would kill whatever their attacker was down to like 3, and they wouldn't attack my thing and they wouldn't retreat it for some stupid reason, and they would just leave everybody behind them on the bridge, and then I would just wreck them with like my rockets and artillery, all my long range weapons.
You played different then.
The AI wouldn't retreat itself, so it would just like leave itself there to like just be murdered.
Yep, the AI does. It for some reason it does do that. It doesn't move back. I don't know why, but it doesn't tend to retreat troops. I mean, if troops are injured, it will retreat them sometimes. But if they're not injured, it won't move them back. It will leave them right where they are.
But going back, like we have, it seems like it's like a perfect mix of what the different like characters / whatever like units are in this game, that I think the sequels, like just by sequels, you're like, well, we need to add something, we need to iterate something, but I don't feel like they knew how to add to the formula. We got such a perfect, like fully realized formula, and part of that's because this is either the seventh or
this is the seventh.
The seventh or fifth Wars game, depending on how you count it.
Wait, maybe no, you're right. Maybe it's Advance Wars. That was not Advance Wars, but Fire Emblem. That was the seventh one that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, Fire Emblem is definitely 7, but there was a Game Boy. There's like Famicom Wars, Game Boy Wars 1 through 3, and Game Boy Wars Turbo. But Turbo's just like a souped up version of Game Boy Wars 1, and Game Boy Wars 3 came out like a week before. Wars.
I read about that. Like they pushed the release of Advanced Wars because they wanted Game Boy Wars to like have a chance.
Yeah, in Japan. Yeah. But we got it like a week after Game Boy Wars 3 showed up for Game Boy Color, I think. So we just got like this fully refined version of the game, like out of the gate, like with the units, like they cut like redundant units from the Super Famicom version. Things like the UI was much better. Like they didn't used to have like what the health of the characters were or the units were on the screen, which are taken away for Sonya's missions. But that didn't exist until Advance Wars. Like, so you had to like hover over to see what each character's health was. So like we got just like a perfectly fully realized version of this game that we didn't have to deal with like all of its iteration over a decade. And then I don't know where else they were going to go. So you can't add like more pieces to chess or Tetris without fucking up the formula. So
that's kind of what happened. I also feel like a lot of this game is a lot more puzzle heavy than people realize. Like when on the units and the levels where you have a base and you can make your own troops, there is a right way to do it. I feel. I mean, my way worked every time where I just built a bunch of medium tanks and rushed you, except for a couple levels.
I played StarCraft. I would just wait 20 minutes, have like max out my armies, and then just ruin everything.
That's how I used. That's how I play RTS.
That's how teenage me played. That's how it did.
It's not it doesn't work very well anymore, but yeah, I played the same.
Yeah,
it's how I like to play my games.
Yeah, but this one's much more puzzle heavy, and it's like, okay, well, I have to do this, and I have to bait, and then be very strategic, and that's why the Fog of War levels like messed me up because I just didn't know what I was going into. So
you can't see shit.
You can't see shit. Although you can like cheese it, like if you do like one exploratory mission and then reset when you lose. Like there was one where I had to keep like the missile safe from Drake, and it ended up just me being hiding through the rivers because I knew there was nothing up in the top part of the map.
Oh yeah, for that mission, I loaded my missile on a lander, and I just drove I had my lander just sail all the way into this hidden piece of coral in Fog of War. Fog of War is where the enemy neither opponent can see the map except where their units are. All the units have a certain range, but if you're in coral or a forest, they can't see you at all.
Yeah, unless they're right next to you. So yes. I made like a little thing. There was no way for them to get next to the coral, and I just hid for 10 levels. I'm like, this is not how I like to play this game.
No, it's a terrible mission.
But I think that's the only way to do it, right? I don't think
you can. Otherwise, you will get massacred.
Yeah,
you can't stay and fight. You're not meant to. You have to run and flee for your life.
Yeah, and I think that's where this game can fall apart is if there's only one way to do something. But I got like a B rank on it, so I know there's got to be a better way to do that level.
You lose less units. You load up the other lander with more units, and then you protect both landers.
Everybody died except for my lander, and
yeah, same with me. I mean, he was the only. It was only the rocket that survived. Everyone else was gone. But that's the trick to it: is try to not sacrifice everyone.
The tile system was actually really cool. I know that they had kind of used this in the Game Boy Wars, the previous ones. But it's kind of interesting. I mentioned Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced earlier, which was a similar game that kind of cared about, vantage point. So like if you were higher, then your ranged attackers had better attacks, and that one kind of took advantage of which direction you were facing. In this game, it takes advantage of, well, what type of terrain are you on, and that gives you a certain defense status boost. So like cities being the most, cities, and then mountains, and then forest, and then grasslands, and then bridges, I think. But I really enjoyed that because it's it's very simple. You see maybe a tank that's one that's in the grass or one that's in wooded areas, but that one's a little bit more damage. So it makes you kind of have to think, well, how can I get rid of the most, how do you get rid of the most bad guys? And on top of that, like you can't just move them and then like check the attack. You have to kind of commit to it. So it's like if you move, you've moved. You have to move and then you attack. So it's kind of wild. Like, okay, I have to try and commit to this and hope that this is the correct attack.
I think you can click to it and then hover over the 60%, and then you press B and they can move backwards without committing.
No, I agree with that. But what I'm talking about is like after you've confirmed the move, like if you've moved it and it's like, oh shit, I should have. Oh God. Yeah. And it's, you kind of have to push through with your decision. Like, oh, dang, I shouldn't have moved that. Again, that happened a lot with the Fog of War, because I think it was Mike that said, if unless you're right next to, the square of the forest, you can't see what's in the forest. So if you're moving a unit across a forest and there's Fog of War, you might just get stopped, and that's it.
And you wasted your medium tank, your most powerful dude's like turn.
Yeah, and then you just like ran it like right next to a mech unit, and they're gonna destroy you next round. It's awful.
That's the thing but it works with this game extremely well. And one thing we haven't talked about is all the COs that you control all have different powers that they get. Like Andy has you have a meter that will build up as you get hit, and as you take out other units, this meter will fill up over time. And like Andy's power is called Hyper Repair, where he then heals all your units for 2 life, which really isn't that much, and they're also more powerful on that turn.
Right. I like the idea of the COs because they give like an extra wrinkle to the levels. Like I've been playing, other games where you're replaying the same mission over and over again, but there's like, well, remember this CO has, like Max has, more stopping power, but like worse range. It just gives an extra like wrinkle, or is one of the dudes has like an extra space of long range attacks. So like it adds an extra wrinkle, as you were talking about like Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. The reason I hated that game was the judges that would like futz with the system. But now in like retrospect, I really like is like it gives me an extra wrinkle. Like you can't use swords in this mission. Like figure out something different. It adds enough like change to your strategy to keep it more fresh and interesting than just I'm fighting an army and here's another army. Because the COs have like inactive powers as well as active power.
Yes, for example, one of my favorites is Kanbei. His units are stronger than most other people's units, but they cost more money.
Oh, really?
And his power is just called Morale Boost, which just makes his units a freaking tank for a turn, where they just massacre everyone they attack during that turn. And it like Max has a thing called, I forget what his is called, even when I saw it dozens of times, but it makes all his units hit harder. And Grit, one of the Blue Moon COs that you fight, his power, I forget what it's called again, but it gives all his long range units can shoot farther for a turn.
Yeah, I think just by default they also get like 1 extra space.
Yep, they're also farther
directly from Advance Wars too. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all farther. That's what his specialty is, that he's a long range.
And like story wise, he's so cool because he's like, I used to be with Orange Star, but now I'm not. We hate you, Griffin's like yeah, or Grit. I don't remember his name now, but like I remember like like they're still like I used to be with y'all. Oh, that's Andy. And like everybody would just, I love how the game shit talks Andy so much.
Yes, it does.
That everybody's like, we hate your character. You suck. Vince, why are you hanging out with him? Because I made my name.
And you find out, I mean, they don't really say it, but they kind of hint at it that Nell dated Grit or something at one point. And I think
I was a teenager. I was all into this. I was all into the drama. The good story.
I think Olaf was also from your Orange Star also at one time. I think.
Yeah. It's fun. Andy is like the stereotypical like try-hard kid that's in basically every anime. He's basically Ash Ketchum. Yeah. And it's so I mean he's he's just like, yeah, I want to learn how to do all this stuff and it's going to be great. And it's like, yeah, basically. And it's like, okay, kid, calm down. But the men are talking.
They give him so much shit throughout this game too. All the enemy COs do.
But again, in that like charming way, it works. I don't know. I understand how it works so well. It's so easy to screw up, and they don't.
I mean, that's the charm of this game, that they made it work well. And the other CO that you have that's part of your main army is Sammy, who I did not use at all during this. Her specialties, her troops capture a little bit faster, and they move a little farther. But I don't use troops except for capturing bases. And so
yeah.
I don't
There's she's really great for levels where you're just like, I'm cheesing this. Like, I'm just going to go for the base and
oh yeah.
And you like, cause it takes because you can win almost every level by just taking over the enemy's base, but it takes at max health two turns in order to get this. And most levels are done within like 10 or 12 turns. So it is time consuming, but if you're not at full health, Sammy has a multiplier that makes you almost like full health for the capturing. So you can really cheese the game.
Because what she does is that all units start out with 10 health, but as they get damaged, their health goes down, and then they become much less effective. Like for troops, if they're not at full health, and it takes 20 to capture it, and they normally will capture 10, then it will only be like they'll capture 5. So you got to wait another turn to hope they don't get massacred. But with Sammy, they can get broken down to 5. They can still capture it because they do 50. They do double for capture.
I think it's 1.5. It's 1.5. So I think she does like 7.
Oh yeah, 1.5. You're right.
She does 15 on if you have health of 10.
And then she does 10 if you have 5.
Yeah, she's great though for that. But her levels are also harder.
I didn't use her. I was going to, because that's how you unlock Eagle, I think. She's somehow related to Eagle, I think. I can't remember. There's a bunch of little story hidden in this game that isn't really there, because it's not what... I mean, there's a story. The whole idea is that you're part of this army, Orange Star, that got attacked by Blue Moon. But as you progress through trying to break out of Blue Moon, you find out that Orange Star started it, but you guys didn't actually start. That's why everybody hates Andy, because there's a clone of Andy running around as part of this other group that you didn't know existed that's fighting all the continents. And that's why Green Earth and Yellow Comet, everyone's trying to fight you, because you already attacked them, even though you have no realization that you did this. You're just trying to travel.
And then that's revealed fairly late in the game.
Yeah. Third to last mission.
Andy times 2. But I also like fighting like myself with the same CO power. I kind of like that idea.
It is cool, and like it's hinted throughout the game. Like there's a certain set of missions that you did, Vincent, that I completely missed.
Yeah, that was because I played the game too good. So they put me on the hard path, the Star Fox hard path. If
you beat the Kanbei missions under a certain amount of turns, or all 3 of them, you unlock the Sonya missions, which I wanted to play, but I didn't unlock them.
I got locked into them. They were long, and I had to use a guide because I'm not good at the Fog of War levels. I'm good at anything else, but not the Fog of War levels. There were 3 Fog of War levels, and they were hard.
Yeah, they're hard missions.
Yeah, they're cool. Sonya's a funny character. Mike, I was telling you offline that like I haven't played this game since I was 16, and I saw like Sonya. I saw Sonya's name, like, oh yeah, Sonya's hot, and I was like, all right. And then I realized that Sonya's like 16, which was age appropriate then, but now in my mid-30s is not age appropriate. Which I was like,
now you're coming with us.
I was like, no, don't like this.
Bonk, bonk.
Go to jail, straight to jail.
Straight to jail.
At least it was a fictional character, and it was from old memories.
And my memory was like, yeah, and I was like, no. So I immediately was like, but Sonya is a fun character because she's just
at
like
least you weren't Doc Antle from the Tiger King, so you're okay. It's a documentary on Netflix all about him. You should watch it if you want.
Oh, so is that what that there's? So there's an extra Tiger King. There's a Tiger King 2.5.
There's a Tiger King season 2, which I haven't watched yet, and then there's a Tiger King 3-episode limited series about Doc Antle.
Okay.
And spoiler alert: he's a pedophile.
So, actually, what's funny is I lived in Oklahoma, about an hour away from that. From where what's his name had his exotic Joe Exotic. So I actually lived really close, and like it's funny. I never like met him, but like everything that I saw in that show was like, that makes sense for Joe Exotic. I knew, it's because like I saw him like on local TV when he was running for governor of Oklahoma and stuff. It was wild that he was on the ballot.
It was pretty damn. I mean, it's funny hearing all like when I remember when that came out, in COVID times, and it's just how much stuff that got on the news with that show. How that show just blew up so much.
So which CO is most like Joe Exotic?
That's a great question.
I got none. I mean, none of them are that crazy or anything. So
No, I think that's the thing is like these characters aren't like characters, like they're they take their world seriously, and I think that makes it feel like important enough to care about. Maybe not like it's not like you don't care about these characters like Game of Thrones characters, right? Like, oh no, what's going to happen? So I haven't seen Game of Thrones, so I don't have a good point of reference, I guess. But I don't know, it feels it's fun enough, but you care enough about the characters.
Yeah, and that's why I think like the logical extension for Advance Wars 2 and the part that really worked for me is like, oh, now I get to play with all these guys in the campaign, like getting all the COs as part of my campaign, because there's like, and I think I can't exactly remember. Is it like I can pick between doing like the Orange Star missions or the Yellow Comet missions?
In Advance Wars 2, yes.
Yeah, and that was the good coming home. Like that seems like this one's small. It's you're just this team, and then the next game it like really blows it out to have like all the other COs and like a lot more options and a lot more missions and a lot more. They're my friends, and that really worked really well. I think that was a really cool extension into the sequel.
Yeah, like with this one, you don't really have that because you're at war until the very end. I mean, they hinted throughout the game that something's going on here, something's not right, but you don't understand why people hate you.
I'm so disappointed by the villain. It looked like a Deku scrub with a Nazi hat.
Oh, Strum? He does. I mean, you're not wrong. He kind of does.
Yeah, I think the story of 2 was a little bit better just because like when you one had to happen so we could meet all these characters, right? And most of them come back for 2 with a few exceptions here and there. But I think having like kind of just a straight up Nazi allegory to like fight against was so much easier, right? Like in this one, it's like, yeah, we have to fight Olaf, but like, really Olaf isn't a bad guy. And in 2, when we have Black Hole, it's as the consumerate the consumerate bad guy. It's so much easier to say like, oh hey, Orange Star and Green Earth, like we're all on the same team and we're fighting against this unstoppable juggernaut.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I also like how all the COs do come back from this game to the second game though. They add a bunch, but they bring everybody back.
Oh, right. Yeah, they added more. They didn't take anyone out.
No, not maybe in Dual Strike and things. And then on, I have never played.
At least like 30 COs. And it also has like tag team CO powers where you can like have 2 COs on your team. And you can use like one dude that like makes cheap units and then you can swap to Kanbei to make them stronger. Like you can kind of like supplement things. It's pretty cool.
Someday I want to play more of the series.
Well, yeah, I'm excited. I'm prepped now. I'm ready. I played through this game. I'm ready to play Advance Wars 2 on the Switch. I'm just going to upgrade straight to that one.
I was going to say someday we'll be able to do that on this on this 5-year-old system. We'll be able to play it.
I'm so happy it's getting re-released though. It really does make me happy because like I had forgotten until we went back and played this game for the show how much I really like this game. Like I love all the way the units work and how the COs work. I just love this game.
I've been chasing the high of this game for 20 years, like getting all the Advance Wars sequels, like stuff like War Groove and Tiny Metal. I got into Fire Emblem just because I wanted more Advance Wars, and like nothing has really satisfied the taste in like that moment of Advance Wars 1 for me. Like it's still like I think the pinnacle of the series for me, even though like there's cool logical extensions in the sequels.
And I do want to talk a little bit about like the way that you make units, because you can make air units, naval units, and land units, and use different bases for each of those.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't use a lot of the naval units, but they're not bad in this game. You have a sub, a lander, a cruiser, which takes out subs and other flying, and you have battleship. I was never. Were you guys ever big into using a lot of the naval stuff?
No, because at least the maps didn't really like cater to using them that much. Like, it's like, oh, well, there's this river that I have to like go through. It didn't behoove me to like really do like a strong naval strategy, except for like the levels that forced it, especially because if there is an air strategy next to it, because the air units just can go anywhere. And like those bombers can really wreck things, although they have a good counter with like the missiles and the advanced one. But no, I didn't do much of the naval stuff just because this game didn't really like lead to it.
Yeah, it didn't force me very often. And when I did, I just kind of copy pasted my make battleships and just, swarm them. like I did with make a whole bunch of medium tanks and just kind of shoot them at my opponents. So yeah, if I ever had to, it was like, okay, just make a bunch of battleships and shoot them from range. It's okay. I
didn't
just
like battleships much. I didn't like any of the naval stuff much, to be honest.
I couldn't remember like how the counter system worked with them. Like obviously the subs are really good at like taking out the battleships, one because they can get right next to them, and two because so the battleships can't attack back at them because they're long range weapons, and then you can kind of like hide them. But the cruisers were a good answer for the subs, but I didn't have a really good answer for the cruisers other than like trying to get a land unit to attack them or a battleship. There was no like good melee counter to the cruiser because the subs sucked against them. And that's the thing I really like about Fire Emblem. I think its triangle of like what rock, paper, scissors of what's good against what is much more well defined in Fire Emblem than it is in this game. Like
Did you know this game has a map editor too, where you can make your own maps?
I did, yeah, but I never messed with that. I never messed with literally anything outside of the campaign. Like I didn't realize there was just extra puzzles to play. I thought that was all multiplayer.
For this. I mean, I didn't for this playthrough, sorry. For this playthrough, I didn't screw around, but back when I found this game first time for emulation, and I was in high school and we were freshman year when I got into this, my freshman year. So we had no money, me and my friend, and that's how we played this game, like I was saying, nonstop. We unlocked everything because what else are you going to do then? You don't have any money.
Exactly. This game rules.
I don't remember if I ever screwed around with the map editor, but I do know, like even when I was playing it for this episode, I really was having fun just screwing around with all the different maps that you could do where you earn more coins. Like I was actually having a lot of fun doing that until I got busy. That's kind of what happened. I just had to stop. I'm like, I need to move. I need to start playing Sly 2. Like I need to stop playing Advance Wars.
Yeah,
but that's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem. I mean, Advance Wars is such a great game, and I think that the series just continued to get better and better with each subsequent iteration. I think they improved a little bit on some of the issues. Like we said, there wasn't a lot of anything forcing you into any naval combat, which I think they did a little bit better job in future iterations. And it'll be interesting to see what they do to freshen these up a little bit, because they're definitely excellent games and I think stand on their own, the first one specifically. But, I wonder what they're going to do to kind of spice it up a little bit and make it more modern, I guess.
That's the thing is like I don't know where the series goes from here. It did what it wanted to do, and I'm very happy with what exists. And but at the same time, I was kind of burned out by the time they got to Days of Ruin. I'm not sure if it was I was welcoming the new setting because I felt burned out, because it felt like it didn't feel like each sequel was adding enough, and it was just like more missions. But I was growing less and less invested as the series went on, despite the quality being pretty much there. So I don't know what they do beyond this. Do you make a sequel? Do you let Way Forward make another one that's different? Do you just port the DS game?
My guess is they're going to port the DS game.
Yeah.
They port the other two. That's my guess.
Or they just shelve it like F-Zero and just kind of go, whenever we decide that maybe Fire Emblem isn't selling as well as we hoped it would, then we'll dust off we'll dust off Advance Wars and put it out a new one. But I'm every time I think the Wii U is probably the best console, or the 3DS would have been if anyone gave a shit about the 3DS anymore. But I don't know, I feel like the Wii U is kind of where they could have put it on a primary console, and they just kind of missed that shot. But I guess the Wii U was just kind of a whole missed shot.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the 3DS would have been perfect. They could have added the Street Pass maps for map editing, or
God.
Yeah,
that would be so dope. Rad.
Yeah. Design your own CO or something. I don't know.
Wow.
Just design your own maps. Let people make maps. That would have been really cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been really sweet. But yeah, it's been 14 years since the last game. I don't know what's going to happen here. And it's funny because I feel like this game sold America on the idea of Fire Emblem. And now Fire Emblem was now it's from the makers of Fire Emblem comes something similar. Come check it out. So.
It's kind of funny how it, in a way that it's completely forgotten.
Right. Not to me.
No, not to me either. That's why
I love this game. This is one of those. Yeah.
I also it
was such a great time.
I like the air units a lot too. I don't use them as much. Even when I was playing this game, this playthrough, I try. You have a B-copter, a bomber, a fighter, and a T-copter. A T-copter being transport. I just never Like, I like the bombers, and they're one of the most expensive units, but every time I make one, they just die. I didn't.
I was really well. That was what the cool triangle was. Is they would wreck. They were like one of the few like really good answers for like medium tanks. But then like the triangles, like the bombers were good against medium tanks, and the only thing that bombers could really be like wrecked by were either the missile silos or the jets. I'm sorry, but the missile things, yeah, the artillery things that had little guns, and then but the tanks could wreck the artillery things. So it was a nice little triangle over there. And I like that risk reward there. I loved the bombers. I loved my little fighter jets, and I loved what else was there? Yeah, and the copters were cool. Like, and the transport copters were fun. Yeah, it's such a good mix of units. I think like that first one's just like perfect for me. I
also want to talk about like because the last battle, because every mission in this game is kind of the same, where it's all you versus the one enemy. But then we get to the last mission of this game, you get 3 different units join you depending on how you played. I think that's really something else too.
It's really cool.
Other COs that join you, and it's random. Well, not random. It's based on your decisions earlier in the game who you get.
Oh, really? Interesting. I didn't know that. Okay.
It's not always the same people. It all depends on how you play. Like for me, I got Max on one side, which made me happy because he's my favorite CO, and then I got Drake on the other side, which was useless because there's no water in this mission. So he's not good. You're the best one you can get is Eagle for that. And I'm like, damn it, I want Eagle. That last mission took me 4 or 5 tries where I had to literally use a guide and just copy what they told me to do to win it. Because
I did not make it that far.
That's fine. The last mission is really
everybody
hard.
Like trips in front of themselves too, because like there's like kind of like a choke point where you need to have everybody go through, but like, oh well, the one CO is like all of his turns are wasted. Now they're blocking me, so I can't move through them. Even though like it's not that idea, like because you can walk through your own dudes, but you can't walk through like on a normal mission, but you can't walk through the other armies people. You stop and it affects your movement, and it even does that even though you're controlling 3 armies. And so that can really like mess you up.
And the other issue with that one is Strum's power is he shoots a meteor at the screen and takes out all the troops. He doesn't kill them. Brings them to 2 health.
I'm getting it confused though, because like my memories also are like of Advanced Wars 2, where I think there were like 4 corners was the final mission, so it was a little easier to do your attacks that way. But yeah, still a very cool like team up at the end. Like it's like the suicide mission at the end of Mass Effect 2.
But it was surprisingly fun. Like I had to use a guide in the beginning that kind of told me move your APC here, do this. And then once I got past the first part and I was able to kind of do my own thing, I was fine because it was just massacre him and I would just keep him down. Because, I mean, the thing is with troops, the other thing about this game is that as you injure enemies' troops, if they're on their own towns, they're going to use their resources to have to heal them. So if you just keep damaging him just a little bit, will make him have to heal and cut his resources down.
It affects their money, really?
Yep. Same with you, too. Really? When you heal your troops, it costs you your money.
Oh, shit. Huh.
I mean, sometimes
there's so many weird and deep systems in this game that, like, wow.
It's a very deep game. I mean, considering it's not that, like, it doesn't seem that complicated, it's a very deep game.
Right, and that's what makes it, like, so appealing for, like, the Game Boy Advance. Like, you don't have much money. There's like, and like a long trip like me, like this is my long drive from Texas to Indiana, and then spending it all in the assisted living home. Like this was absolutely a system that like would carry me like through a whole week.
Can I just say thank you for not calling it a nursing home, sir?
Oh, it was it was great. It was my first time ever in an assisted living home because my grandparents like lived in a farmhouse that was built without electricity, so half the house didn't have central heat, and it was miserable. They didn't have cable. It sucked. I hated it as a teenager. And then they got the assisted living home, and I'm like, this place rules. It's carpeted. Everybody's nice. I'm talking to this guy, George, who, we're watching Christmas Story together and playing video games. The food was good. It was warm. It was a great time. I had a great time.
The reason I made that joke is I work.
I know you work at one, right?
Yeah, I'm a sales manager at one. So people come in there like, it's a nursing home. I'm like, no, don't say nursing home. This is not a nursing home. Like, that's different.
They're perfect. They're perfect too. Because like basically like my grandma just needed somebody in case she fell and
independent living facility.
Yeah,
that's a little different, actually.
Yeah, no, they're a little different. Yeah, it's fun.
It's just funny because when people say it now, it didn't mean anything to me back then, but now I'm like, I get it now.
Is this a healthcare administration podcast now?
It can become one. We're going fast, so I'm like, hey, let's add a little extra time on. Why not? But the thing about Advance Wars is just the way that the resources are. Like, when I play this game, I always take over every town I can, whether I need to or not. I could finish the level, but if I got you to the point where the enemy's on the ropes, I will take every town.
Nope, wouldn't waste the time. If I didn't have a base, there was no town capture happening.
I don't know why. Well, no, it had to be a base. If there's no base, I'm not going to bother. But if there's a base, I'm going to keep capturing all your towns, take all your money, so you're not making any income. I cover up your bases with my units, so you can't make more units while I just mess with you.
Even if there's no way for me to make new items, I will capture every single one of your cities. Just hoard money like a dragon.
You can still use it to repair troops, but I don't know. I always get a kick out of taking over their troops. I can't help it. It makes me giddy to be that asshole that took over your towns and took all your money and took over your bases and made you helpless. I mean, that's not the efficient way to play. Like, I just watched a speedrun of this game while we've been talking. He beat the game in 45 minutes.
No.
He didn't wipe out anybody's army. He just captured everybody's bases to win the game.
I don't know how you do that, but okay.
A lot of bait and switch.
Is that it? Yeah.
He did a lot of APC moving around and taking and putting units that they'll go after and then drawing them out.
Kind of gaming the AI a little bit.
And I'm sure he cut through the animations too, right?
Oh, he had them all turned off, which I didn't even know you could until that video, because I never did, because I should have. Because, like, as I was saying, when I played this game, most of the time I'd let it play, but when I did the final mission, because it's such a brutal mission, and like every turn I would watch tons and tons of my troops just get massacred, I would literally turn it off, so I didn't have to see that. I mean, it wouldn't turn it off. I put it on fast forward ×8, and then put my phone down and let it play out and not look at it because it made me sad. I mean, it was completely irrelevant, but it just made me sad to see it happen every time. I didn't want to see all my troops.
It's so beautiful and detailed, though, especially for like you're not getting sprite work and animation work like that detailed. I mean, it's until the GBA and like 32-bit, like it's really pretty. I like watching it. I love how the city's designed. Going back to like an hour ago, we were talking about it's not going to be as pretty in 3D models.
As a guy who skipped GBA completely, I love going back to some of these games and being like, man, this game is so good. Like, I wish I would have gotten to enjoy it when it was new.
Yeah, it was a time. I mean, but it's absolutely perfect as a PC game, as you alluded to.
Yeah, I mean, there's also Wargroove, which I don't think Wargroove is like, a spiritual successor to this game, even though it's not made by the same people.
Right, and it's also like medieval as opposed to like modernish military.
Yeah, like this was surprising that I don't normally like modern military that much, but this actually worked for modern military. Like it somehow fit the theme right.
And then there's Tiny Metal that also plays like this and has a similar, I wouldn't say art style because it's not exact, but it's still like it's kind of like deformed, like cutesy modern military.
I don't think I've heard Tiny Metal.
It's almost chibi, almost.
Yeah,
like
almost.
It's very so close, very like a mix of like chibi and like traditional anime. It's very, very pretty. This game is so fucking good looking. Can I say fuck? I'm sorry.
I've been cursing like a storm.
Oh, it's fine. You guys can curse. I do all the time in the show.
I know Mike does a really good job at editing, so if he was,
I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. The show.
I would never say fuck on a podcast.
We're not family friendly. It's okay. I mean, how we covered Deadly Premonition, which is a game that talks all about rape at one point. I had to put that was a fun episode.
I just put the explicit tag on my podcast, and I don't even think did we curse on the episode? I don't know. We probably
do too. I just put it on there. Did we get into some? If the game calls for it, we'll get into deep stuff.
Yeah.
Most games, thankfully, don't, but some do.
When you have me on to discuss Star Fox Command for the DS, I will keep that in mind.
I never played it, but I've been tempted to. So okay, and I know another game to get when I put that on here.
Woo!
Like I'm gonna do iNinja coming up here just because Vince keeps talking about it.
Hell yeah, iNinja's the best.
Sick.
Never played it. I'm only gonna play it because he keeps talking.
I'm sure it's been a decade since I've replayed it. I'm worried now. I've been hyping it up so much.
That's fine. It's not 2002, so we're okay.
This game's gonna be boxed. It'll be so sad when they accidentally box mine.
Any last things we should say about Advance Wars before we go on to questions, comments, or memories? We still got time. Do you have any last things that we haven't covered yet?
I think the only thing that we haven't really discussed is when your units get kind of knocked down a few points and they're it's at 5 out of 10. Joining your units kind of like helps set them up. Kind of helps heal them. So that's a fun aspect. It kind of makes you think about like how, okay, I could go in and get some shots with this tank that's at 7, and then I could join this other tank that's at 5 to it to basically put it back to 10. And, it kind of adds a depth of strategy that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't ever utilize. I've utilized it like twice, but yeah, I like the option. I think if I exploited that, I could actually like use it really well. It's just something I never do.
No one should be surprised listening to this episode, but I play this game entirely on mute. So how are the sound effects and music in this game?
I think every CO has like their own theme. It's supposed to be really good, but again, I was on mute too, so I have no idea.
It's really. I mean, it is Game Boy Advance level audio. And I remember it because I played this game so much with my brother especially, but it's really fun music. I mean, it's generally fairly good across the board. The explosions sound like explosions on the Game Boy Advance. You can't really do anything to improve those a whole lot. The Game Boy Advance is very good, but it is also very limited. It's good overall, I think.
Okay, I was just curious because I experience games wrong sometimes, for lack of a better term. I always admit that though, that I do play games wrong because the fact that I play so many things muted, and I know a lot of people consider that hearsay.
Yeah, they do, but I'm like, that's why I'm like, oh, Final Fantasy has the greatest music. I don't know. I muted the whole thing. So
when I played Final Fantasy VI, one of the best games ever made, I played muted, but that's for reasons that I'm not going to discuss on here. But there's a reason why things are muted for me. Same with this game, but I don't care as long as I still enjoy the game. That's what matters to me.
Well, I mean, if you're sitting on the bus, you're not going to be blasting this. I mean, not that you would see anyone running around with the Game Boy Advance these days, but I think most handheld games you're going to be playing muted. Because if you have headphones, they're plugged into your phone or to an iPod to make this period specific.
If you have a new phone, you're not plugging any iPhone, any earbuds in anything anymore.
That's true.
There's no plug anymore.
That's true. Forgot about that.
I hate that, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
I really don't like how none of these things have plugs anymore. It really upsets me.
Well, oppositely, like my right before we recorded, I noticed that I plug a set of like normal headphones into this microphone to listen, and it was in mono because my headphones had broken, and luckily I have an extra pair, but I'm like, oh fuck, I gotta buy another pair. They're so hard to find good like corded headphones now that are like good but cheap. The market is falling apart on that side too, so now I'm just Andy ruining this podcast. What's the deal? Well, I can't buy a good corded headphone set anywhere.
Oh god, that movie still holds up. It still does, by the way, if you were curious. But no, it's one of those things that always did bug me, but it's times. I'm also, I did not know this game was available on Wii U. It makes me happy to know that they re-released it in some aspect. Like I'm still just happy it's coming back because it deserves it. And one last thing I want to say before we go on to questions is the company that made this game makes a ton of games.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have been doing so much stuff, like all the Fire Emblem games. They do the WarioWare games. The last game they made that came out. Well, it looks like it might have been WarioWare Get It Together, plus Paper Mario, the Origami King. They did Fire Emblem Three Houses. Like they're completely still around. I mean, and that makes me happy to know that even though they're not involved with Advance Wars, they're still around. I'm happy.
Right. They did this. They did Fire Emblem, which are very similar. They also did that. What is it called? It's Codename Steam.
Codename Steam, yes. Which
is like a mix between. $5. It's Fire Emblem / Advance Wars, but like behind the back 3D. It's not great. It's not great. I'm not gonna lie. It's weird though.
Is Intelligence Systems kind of like HAL, where they are like a separate company, but basically they only do Nintendo shit?
Yes.
But have constantly had a Nintendo contract for the last 30 years. Yeah.
Well, I know Nintendo like has a controlling share in HAL. I know that there's a lot of kind of cross pollination in there. But I know that Intelligence Systems has been used fairly heavily, mostly for Fire Emblem. But as you guys said, we had a couple extra WarioWare and all that. But yeah, it's kind of weird that like Intelligence Systems hasn't gone on to do something outside of Nintendo. But if Nintendo is giving you a bunch of money to do these games, keep on it, I guess. Why
ruin the fun? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, the Nintendo coffers of Scrooge McDuck, full full pool of money. Like, yeah, dive right into that.
Right, and that's why like when Nintendo bought, I think it was at Next Level, the Luigi's Mansion developers. It wasn't so much like that they were like looking to acquire developers, but the owners of Next Level were looking to leave. And Nintendo's like, well, shit, we depend on these people, so I guess we have to fucking buy them. If they don't need to buy intelligence systems, but they have a constant contract with them, then I think Nintendo's happy to have like a slight separation, and they don't have to like outright own them. And so I think that's what, because they've just been a support team also for like R&D1 and EAD like since the beginning.
They've been around. I mean, I'm actually going to try to track down Super Famicom Wars now that we do this episode, because I really want to try that now.
Yeah, it's missing a few things, and it's got a few extra units.
Oh my god, this is the same company that made Cubivore Survival of the Fittest.
Yeah, Cubivore rules. Did you do Cubivore for the podcast? Yeah.
Yes.
I had that one. Don't know.
We did it. The only reason we did it, the only reason I agreed to it, we got Jeff Cork from Game Informer fame. So
I got that game like when it was new. That was like,
yeah, that game is weird as fuck.
It's weird. It was a fun summer playing that game.
All right. Any last things to say for the third time?
Nope, I'm good.
Right.
This was a fun game. Thanks for inviting me on to talk about it.
All right, we're going to do questions, comments, or memories. I got a couple. I didn't get very many, and I also didn't post very often, so that probably played a part in it. First one, from I watched the entire Orblood Super Replay, I got Walter Eady. I ended up liking Advance Wars 2 more, but damned if it wasn't hard. I never did beat the final level. I should clarify, I never beat the final level in the mode you unlock after you beat the game once through on normal mode. Okay, I have no idea what he's talking about, but all right. And from the official Laser Time community, where I met both of you guys, I got a couple from Matthew LeGrave. I was first introduced to Advance Wars 2 from a friend when we were on a 5th grade school bus trip to DC. At the hotel, he showed it off and let me borrow it that night, and I got really into it despite not fully understanding it and being terrible at it. I ended up saving my allowance for what felt like a long time until I could afford a used copy. I still had to use a Game Shark to finish it back then, but when I went back to it past summer and had a blast with it now, and then I'm big into turn-based strategy games in general. Days of Ruin remains my favorite entry since it weakened the CO powers. It's always felt like the easiest way to cheese a game in prior entries. Okay?
Yeah.
And from Lionel Miles, last one I'm going to read. Advance Wars 1, 2, and Dual Strike was a lunchtime institution in my junior and senior year of high school. It got so involved that 4 of us that played sought out other kids to teach the game to and sick on one another like Pokemon. Up until I lost track of my DS, Days of Ruin was my go-to time killer, and I played it inside and out. I absolutely adore the series and was happy to see the first 2 games ported to the Switch. So here's the question. If Big Boss was a CO, what would be his field of second CO power be?
I do not have any Metal Gear background, unfortunately, to elaborate on that question.
I do. I would say that his powers, he could turn a troop to join him.
Ah.
That would be, because that would fit Big Boss when you look at like Peace Walker and Portable Ops, and I think Phantom Pain probably also, where he would Fulton troops and have him join him.
I think his CO power would be a 1.5 hour cutscene.
Just ruin all speed runs.
That'd be his field effect. Everything takes longer, so your troops do better because they're too busy. The other troops get bored waiting for you to fight.
Yeah, when you move a tank, like it cuts to 2 generals like discussing the cost of fuel, and it's very in depth. I think that would be very interesting. And
his other question he put is, he said, please apply that same question to the host. So Vincent, what would your field effect?
Oh, shoot. Well, now you're putting me on the spot.
Yep.
My field effect would be, my field effect would be my ideal field effect would be to, I don't even know. I would like to be able to cut all movement distance and obstacles out of the way. And that would be my ideal one. So I don't have to worry about like going over mountains.
And your CO power?
Oh, my CO power. That would be to smooch everybody. Just give them a big smooch so then they don't hurt me as much.
Okay. What about you, like Kody?
My CO power, I think my CO power would be to like overanalyze like the 18 things that I have to do and do them all half-heartedly, but celebrate really hard for the things that I did get done. So I think units that survive would like get high fives all around, I think would be in order. And I think that's pretty much it. It would just be kind of like dawdling mostly.
Okay. For field effects, since I'm a cheap bastard, I would say all my units cost a little bit less but are weaker because it would fit me. And for CO power, I can convince enemies to join me for 1 turn because I can talk a lot.
Ooh.
Very convinced silver tongue.
But only 1 turn, and then they're like, I'm done.
Yep. I figure that fits more accurate. Big Boss, they would join you permanently. For me, it's just you get to turn a small group of people to 1 turn. So that's what I got. Oh, and the thing that we didn't mention that I just thought of is that all your units have fuel and ammo that you have to refill by either going onto a town or getting murdered does a good job of not mattering, or having them get filled up by an APC.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the downsides of any of the missions that you had to use air units. Is you would just go and you would do the things that those air units would do, right? Like there's a mission in the tutorial where you have a couple jets, but the problem is like they only have like a couple helicopters and a couple jets themselves. So like once you kill everything, then they're just kind of there, and you can't do anything with them because all of their air units are dead. So. Yeah, it could kind of suck that you were just like stuck with all these air units to just kind of, I don't know, fly around until they just fall out of the sky.
Yeah, it didn't really become apparent that fuel even existed as like a problem until like my submarine started blowing up and my planes just started falling out of the sky.
You don't see it a lot except for a few things, submarines, jets, for example, especially when they're useless. They just fall out of the sky. I mean, I used it to my advantage with the enemy where I would just bait them and then wait for them to run out of fuel and blow up.
Oh. Yeah, I did do that in the Drake mission. That's true.
If they could make any addition, they could make it so that you could steer the airplanes into enemy units. Oh, I think that would be pretty badass.
This game like had a tenuous. I think it may have been pulled from shelves at least anecdotally after 9/11. That would definitely not have been a good idea.
Yeah,
that would have got it pulled for sure. All right, I think that's everything I want to say. So let's go to shelf, stack, or box. Shelf being something you really like, stack being something you don't want to shelve it, you don't like it as much, but you want to have it around, you can replay it again. And box being something you disliked. And I'll go first. This game is obviously going on the shelf because I keep talking about this game. I keep promoting this game to people. I'm going to replay this game. Am I going to buy the reboot camp? Probably not, because I'm a cheap bastard and I don't care about Switch. But I'm happy it's there. I will play this game again though on my phone at some point down the road. I'll just replay it again and again and again because I have so much fun playing it. It is such a good game. So it's going to go on the shelf. What about you, Vincent?
Definitely going to put it on. This is actually my first time I'm going to be putting stuff on the shelf and all of my appearances being on this podcast because this game rules. I love it. I think of it fondly. Anytime it's available for purchase, I will purchase it again in the hopes that they'll make more of them. And also, I just really like this game and having it accessible at any point. It's got a great art style. It's got that perfect balance of like combat. It gives me that RTS taste without being. It's just perfect. It's just a beautiful game, and I love it. And I'm glad it's back. And yes, thank you for having me on here.
I think I'm going to put it on the stack. I have very fond memories of playing this as a kid, but I'm afraid, I'm a little trepidatious because with this new upgrade or this re-release, I'm afraid that they're gonna send Advance Wars the way of Chibi Robo, and they're gonna go, oh well, if you want more Advance Wars, you should buy this one. And it's like, well, what happens if this one doesn't sell well? Do we just never ever get another Advance Wars? And I'm disappointed by certain aspects of this remake. I don't think the 3D models are very compelling, but I feel like if I don't buy this, we just may never see another Advance Wars again. And that would be sad because these are fun games, and you can do a little couch co-op or I guess couch versus with some friends, and it's fun to fire up for those purposes, but I'm just not really into RTSs. So it is very good, but so I don't want to like throw it in the trash or anything, but it's not quite shelf worthy for me, I don't think.
Okay.
Make more Advance Wars.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna make it anymore. I think this is the end.
No, also fun trivia I just found out is this game was actually not released in Japan until after the second one came out because of 9/11 happened, and then they didn't release this in Japan.
There was a pretty quick clip of these games. Like Game Boy Wars 3 also came out like in August 2001 in Japan, and then Days of Ruin I don't even think came out except maybe it's like a Club Nintendo exclusive in Japan. But we got like them like an 01, 03, 05, 08, and then two Wii and a GameCube one in the middle there that are different. Like there was a lot of Advance Wars from 01 to 08. Was that 5 games?
They were big into it, and then they just stopped.
Yeah. Yeah, I never played Battalion Wars 1 or 2. I own Battalion Wars 2, but
I forget about those. Are part of the same. Those are RTSs though.
No, they are
They're
like
not?
you control the units. RTSs.
Yeah,
it's almost
it's like a third
weird.
person shooter. Yeah, it's definitely it's a little different.
It's squatty. Also, I played it at E3 2004, and I don't. It's weird. It's real time, and you it's a third person shooter. But I think you can like also say like air units go here, or I don't know if you take over the air units. I don't know exactly.
I own it.
I remember that it was they did have to change the name because it was definitely not the same game. It was definitely more like Vincent said. It's you take control of the unit and then you act as that unit. So it's definitely less RTS and more I don't know, like active strategy game, I guess.
It felt like Brutal Legend to me, where you kind of control your units. Is the best I can say. Okay. But yeah, I remember when it was revealed at E304, it was called Advance Wars Under Fire. Because previously the whole series was like Famicom Wars, Game Boy Wars, Super Famicom Wars, Advance Wars. I was like, how are they going to change this thing? Because are they going to call it GameCube Wars? And they did.
Wii Wars.
Yeah, Wii Wars. But it does have like Battalion Wars 2 with 2 tiny eyes. So it's BWII. So it's kind of got like Wii. Is how it's abbreviated.
Of course.
It's very cute.
Of course. I don't know. Someday I want to try Game Boy Wars, though.
Yeah, I know Jeremy Parrish did a Game Boy Works on Game Boy Wars 2 for Game Boy Color, so you can check that out there.
Check that out. His videos are great.
They are. Much like my videos, it's plug time. Haha.
And Vincent, where can people find you at?
You can find me on Some of My Friends Read Comics podcast, where we cover a comic we should have covered. That's like a legendary comic. We started the Age of Apocalypse recently, so we're checking that out, and then we're going to be reading Hulk: Future Imperfect in a few more weeks for George Perez announcing his sad terminal illness. We're going to be doing a lot of George Perez over the next year. Just to check out like all of his great body of work. And that's called Some of My Friends Read Comics. I also have a YouTube series called That Was a Game, where I check out spin-offs of video games is what I've been really into lately. So I did Mario Party Advance. I just posted that about a Game Boy Advance Mario Party game that I, spoiler alert, really, really liked, even though it's really weird. You help multiple characters get out of gambling debt. It's a open world thing with quest givers. You help ninjas get DVDs. It's weird. I'm looking to do Battalion. What
game was this? I'd missed it.
Mario Party Advance.
What the fuck?
You go around a board game and you help a penguin get out of his gambling debt so he can get engaged to his girlfriend. It's weird. It's very weird. But I'm looking at Battalion Wars. I've been circling that as like a spin-off, a forgotten spin-off of a legendary franchise. I did like Wario Land earlier in the year, or Wario World, I'm sorry. It's a good series. That was the game.
Okay. And Kody, do you have anything to plug?
No, nothing really. You can find me on all the social medias as Not Kody Smith, NOTKODY I am working on a video game project of some kind. I don't want to talk too much about it just yet because I'm still kind of just in pre-planning stages for all that. So yeah, I'm working on something, and you'll see. I guess at some point, if you follow me on all those places, you'll hear about it.
Okay, so go follow him. And if you enjoyed this show, we have tons of other episodes that we have covered. We do games, movies, comics. We went through the entire Infinity Saga of the MCU, so definitely go check all that out. If you can't find it, we should be on every podcatcher that you use, but if it only goes back so many episodes, Podbean has everything, or use Podcast Addict or some of the other programs will let you grab all our old episodes. We have over 281 episodes at this point, so there's lots of episodes. Also, if you want to help out the show, for as little as $1, you can go vote in our Patreon polls. Every month we do different Patreon polls to decide an extra episode that we're going to do. Definitely go check those out. I'm going to add more in the future. So as little as $1, you can join us. You see a link in the show notes. And the other thing that I want to mention is want to give a shout out to our awesome intro and outro, courtesy of Helena at Hell Hath Fury. You will see a link to her TikTok in the show notes. Definitely go follow her. She made our music. And want to give a shout out to my buddy Bill Tucker, who started his own podcast, The Gamer Looks at 40. So definitely go listen to him. He actually recently interviewed the author of 8-Bit Christmas.
Oh, cool.
That was pretty cool. You got to
I need to watch that movie still.
It's decent. I liked it. It can be a little...
I've heard good things.
I mean, it's a Christmas movie. It's essentially a Christmas story, but for kids that were kids in the 80s.
It's a good idea. It seems like a slam dunk of like, as long as you make it cool and cute and nostalgic. I mean, that seems like
I really enjoyed it.
Formula.
It just has, I mean, I enjoyed it. It just, there's a trigger warning for some situation, but I can't really say because it's kind of a big spoiler, but other than that.
Because Xanadu's in it? Affects Xanadu's in it?
Other than that, it's a good film. I recommend it to people. All right, I think that's everything I need to say. So we will see you guys all next time. Bye, everybody.